And we are here. Where's my mouse? You're looking at the ceiling. Look less at the ceiling. There we go. Hi. Happy Jesus is Dead Day. Jesus is dead. What a way to kick it off. We're having lamb today because it's the spring tradition. It's spring tradition in all sheep raising cultures because that's when you've got the lambs. My lamb, of course, comes in a container. I got the last one of these, and I had to pay full price for it, of cubed lamb chunks. But we're making two things that I have wanted to try for a while, and I'm using this as the excuse to try them. One of them is Fufu, which is, I talked about it when I did the cassava before. We've got some cassava. It's like a dough made of cassava and sometimes plantain, which I've got some plantain, that you like pull chunks off and use it to scoop up stews and things and eat it just with your hands. And I want to try that because that sounds interesting and fun. And I liked I keep looking over here because I got a pile of stuff. I liked the flavor of the cassava, so I'm looking forward to that. The other thing we're trying is, it's in the title. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's how you spell it. I'm going to say Nkate Nkwan. Which is peanut soup, peanut stew. And by peanut stew, it's actually mostly tomatoes and meat, but there's peanut in it. And I think it's actually called ground nut stew. But horse piece. So we're making that, which is Ghanaian, and that's a food culture that I have been interested in trying out. We haven't done like a big long series of me diving into some other cuisine like I did with the Indonesian stuff, and then with the Philippine stuff. We kind of had one lead me into the other. So I don't know if that's going to kick off a big Ghanaian thing now, but that's where we are. So we should get going. I don't think this is going to take incredibly long. It is a stew, but not a crazy stew. I also am cheating a little bit. I'll address you in a second, Axolotl. I'm doing my intro. I'm cheating a little bit. I'm not using a Scotch bonnet for two reasons. I couldn't find any, and I don't think I want that to be that hot. I was going to get habaneros as a stand-in, but you can't get just one habanero. You can only get big packs of them. So I got a Serrano that is starting to turn orange. So that's my hot pepper stand-in. Who is Jesus? Jesus is a quasi-historical figure that is held as the progenitor, the savior figure of Judaic tradition, but there's a schism whether or not he's the savior figure, the actual savior figure, and the ones who say yes became Christians, and the ones who say no became or remained Jews. And then there was another later schism that kicked off Islam. And today he's dead, and on Sunday he's not dead. So in between you have this little gap. And for some reason, I'm going to swap over to the countertop and start working. Look at all this stuff. Onion, ginger, peanut butter, this, my little garlic pot, some cassava, some plantain, some peppers, some tomatoes, and the meat. Which is what we're starting with. It says I could just peel the end off. Oh, we need a big pan. I've already lost my train of thought. We're using the same big pan from last time. As you can see, I cleaned the burnt off gunk off of it. I don't think we need added oil, but I'm afraid to not add any, so I'm going to give it just a dash of olive to get it started. But we should get plenty out of the lamb. Lamb is a very fatty meat, so we're just going to give it a dash to get things started. I'm worried these chunks might be a little bit too big. Let's see, what was I saying? Oh, I was going to talk about lamb, the tradition of eating lamb. So, the tradition of eating lamb in the spring originates from ancient sheep herding culture in many parts of the world. Sheep being the oldest domesticated food animal. Dogs being the oldest domesticated animal, but we don't eat dogs. Well, we don't typically eat dogs. Sometimes we eat dogs. Ah, my drawer caught my cord. That's not good. So I'm going to pull these chunks out of here and take a look at them and see if I want to downsize them a little bit. Some of them look a little chunky. But yeah, so sheep mate in the fall and then give birth in the spring. So in the spring, there's a bunch of brand new lambs. And I like that piece, it's too big. And also, the lambs from the previous year are on the cusp of adulthood. So if you've got a bunch of male lambs on the cusp of adulthood, and you'd rather not have them all fighting for control of the flock and fighting with you, the shepherd, now is a perfect time to eat them. And thus, the tradition of eating lamb in the spring was born. There's a little bit of icy connection still going on in the middle of these guys. Sometimes it really is that simple as to how things come to be. So yeah, some of these I think are a little bit big. I'm going to definitely cut that one down. But I'm thinking I want more like this size rather than these really big chunks. So I think we're going to cut a lot of these into quarters. Like take that guy and go through him one way and then through him the other way. So yes, eating lamb in the spring. The origins are pretty basic, but nothing ever stays basic. The lamb tradition, of course, gets bound up in religious practices very, very quickly, because religion is a good way to get people to do the right thing at the right time without having to explain to them why. So a lot of religious practices are actually stem from like practical things. I don't know that they were done all deliberately, but they they're definitely things that were like practical for people of the time, and it was just easier to do them as a religion, as a religious practice. But then, of course, religions fight with each other. Uh, so the Jewish tradition for eating lamb stems from the story of Passover, which is largely considered to be more of a fable than a true literal historical account. Um, but it results in the same outcome of people eating lamb, or sometimes in the modern day, symbolically eating lamb by just having symbolisms around in the spring for Passover. And then, of course, the Christians, specifically the Catholics, went out of their way to cover over every other religious practice with some Catholic practice. There's a whole bunch of traditions for eating lamb in the spring. So let's just declare that's when Easter happened, and then bind up the Jesus myth, the Jesus mythos, with lamb's symbolism. So we have a case of, once again, symbolic Catholic cannibalism. It's weird how much symbolic cannibalism is in Christian traditions. It's really kind of weird when you stop and think about it. Anyway, that's a history lesson. I hope you're reasonably entertained and informed. And, fact check me, because I'm just riffing off the top of my head from things I've heard and read. Certainly no expert, certainly no theologian. Some of these are going to have a little bit of a gnarly bits in them because they're gnarling up when I try to cut them. So yeah, Good Friday. That's today. It's an okay Friday. How have you been since we last spoke on Monday? I'm still working through that corned beef. I made quite a lot of it. I've finished off the choux farci, but I've still got a big chunk of the corned beef that I didn't use. And I have to dial back a little bit. For a couple days there, I was just eating that with everything, and I'll tell you what, it did a little bit of a number on my tum to eat that much fatty meat. So we're taking a little break from that, although we're headed back into it now because this is fatty meat. Lamb is a pretty fatty meat. This is our last cut. Done. Yes. I mean, all religions are weird if you stop and think about them. Let's pop over here. Let's get this pan heating. Does that mean you have to get your logo sandblasted off? Or is it more like a decal? You can just peel it off. I'm washing my hands because I want to touch things that aren't meat. And I don't want to put the meat in immediately. Okay, our meat tray is just being moved over to be adjacent to the pan. We're going to cut a few other things while that pan heats up enough that I can sear those guys off. I got these really very large Roma. Knife's not big enough. I want that one's serrated. This one, okay. Decal, but it's made out of metal, so it's a magnetic decal. That'd be cool. So there were some huge Roma tomatoes, so I grabbed that for our tomato element. But I am going to take the little core bits out. Because those are not tasty. We're gonna do the old-fashioned scrap bowl this time, rather than a bunch of individual transfers. So we're still in the realm of having greenhouse tomatoes. So they're not the greatest. But I'm not serving them raw. We're stewing them and blending them. So they don't need to look great. They just need to be tomatoey and edible. Likewise with the onion. I'm using a big onion here. We're going to get the stew started before we do the fufu. Because the stew takes a lot longer. Although I think we're still going to be well under some of our recent times. Monday's show was like almost 3.5 hours, which is really long. And I noticed people kind of losing interest and drifting away toward the end. So maybe pushing the boundaries. I should have started that one a little bit earlier. Oh, darn it. I also readjusted this camera. I hope it's better now. Interestingly, we're just cutting the onion like that. There are some odd things that this recipe wants me to do, and one of them is these big chunks, specifically of the vegetables. This pan is probably getting heated. I just want to push our oil around a little bit, but I think I'm actually going to turn it down slightly. The recipe we're using today is from 196 Flavors for Ghanaian Nkate Nkwan. Theirs is a larger batch and is using chicken. I am not doing it with chicken, obviously. I'm doing it with lamb. So we're gonna follow their general route. They're also making a huge amount of this, so I'm cutting that down a lot as well. Okay, get that guy away. Nice sizzle. Good hot pan. We don't need these to be super cooked immediately. We're looking to get a little bit of searing on the outside to get them started. And we are looking for them to render out some of their fat. Because we put very little fat in the pan. We want most of our fat to actually come from the lamb. We've had problems with that in the past where I use lamb and additional fat, and it comes out just in a greasy. I am going to salt our lamb to help draw some moisture out of it. And because we're not adding a ton of other salt elements, I have an unsalted stock, I have unsalted peanut butter, there's salt in the little tiny can of tomato sauce, but we're not using very much of that, so I don't think that's going to impact it. I haven't decided if I'm going to use a stock cube or not, but it should be a relatively low salt thing overall so that I can control the amount of salt that goes in it. Because that's another thing. You guys didn't see it. I should have taken a picture. I should have taken a picture of one of the plates. The plates from the Shu Farsi with the sauce. I didn't eat all of the sauce. And then I put it over here at the end of the day, and then to come back and wash it in the morning. And when I got back, it had dried. And it had not just dried into a crust. It had crystallized. There were visible salt crystals emerging from where the sauce had dried out. It was way saltier than I thought it was. I must have done a good job of balancing out the flavors because it didn't blow my head off with saltiness when I ate it, but clearly it was very salty because I could see the salt in it. So maybe we should review some of those recipe elements and dial down the salt. That was pretty dramatic. These guys should, yeah. So they initially started to stick, and then as they render and grease up the pan, they stop to stick. They also cool the pan down a lot because they're releasing a lot of liquid into the pan. They're going to be in here for a while. We're not worried about getting them cooked up right away because they are going to be with us throughout. I'm going to we're going to push them around a few times, make room, do some other things. Eventually they should be almost fall apart tender, but I want to get a little bit of initial browning on them to help develop flavor, and as mentioned, to render some of this lamb fat. Because yes, lamb is fatty and you have to be aware of that, but it's also one of the advantages of lamb. It's fatty, so you don't have to add fat to it. It gives it to you. It provides. It's a good meat for that reason. You don't have to do much to it, but you can do a lot to it because it also has a very robust flavor. We're already half hour in. Wow. This is going to be a little bit longer than I thought. Let's see. Oh, okra. The okra was just a garnish, and I have frozen okra, but we can add We can add frozen okra. The ginger should be, it just says 1 piece ginger. It doesn't say grated, just a chunk of ginger. Oh, they may be grated or added whole. Weird. Okay, but it's generally considered a faux pas to advertise another channel going live in a channel. So please don't do that. I'm not going to ding you for it, but please refrain. Oh, oh. BMW fan with a slobbery goat. Hi, welcome in. We're not doing goat. Turn the heat up on this a little bit because I think we're having a little bit of a boil. I'm doing good. How are you doing? We are just we've cut up some ingredients and we're just getting rolling on the actual cooking process. And I'm trying to get some browning on these guys, but they have released quite a lot of liquid, and we are kind of simmering them a little bit more than searing them. In fact, we're on the verge of boiling them. I'm tempted to drain off some of this liquid and add it back later. It's flavorful liquid. I don't want to lose it, but for a new car, wow. Well, good luck. I have not been car shopping in a very long time. I mean, you can lurk. You don't have to be always active, Axolotl. You can lurk. I frequently have more than one channel open when I'm viewing, and only one of them will be the one I'm actually like paying attention to. The other ones will be in the background, but I'll poke my nose in, see what's up. So I am going to drain off some of this liquid. I'm going to push the meat down so that I can control it a little bit better. I'm going to drain off some of this liquid because I will add it back, but I don't really want this stuff to boil in its own juices right now. I want it to sear. So we're going to reserve the drippings there and add them back for flavor. I'm also going to make a space, and we're going to do something that the recipe does not call for, but one of the other recipes I looked up while I was doing research did call for. Kian, Gowdy to you. And the thing that we're doing is searing some of these vegetables off. Whoa, Gowdy! So yeah, I think it's because I salted it, and I should have just probably not salted it, or salted it much earlier and brought it back around. So while those onions are developing a little bit of a starting color, I'm going to take this really wrinkly looking ginger and see what it looks like under the surface. And if it's gross, then I do have a fresh one, but I'd rather use up this old one first. We're going to need the peeler. But welcome, welcome. How's it going? There's our tomato. It looks perfectly fine underneath the wrinkly surface. So I guess I'll just use this one. We are going to peel it because the wrinkly surface is a dried out surface. Clatter. A dried out surface. So it's going to be extra tough. So we're gonna peel it, but you're on mobile. That would limit your capacity to do multiple tab lurking. Never worry about having to leave or desiring to leave. I get it. I understand. I'm just not entertaining. I'm not as good as WeFormer. I know. It happens. We need another bowl because I need to pop back over. Yeah. Oh, we're developing some fond as well, which is good. So I actually want to add a little bit of our liquid back. Or all of our liquid back and turn the temperature down a little bit. I don't want to burn anybody. I just wanted a little bit of color, which we're getting, on these onion pieces. Turn that up to half a tick above 6. I'm actually going to pull them now. There's a lot of sort of put the thing in, take the thing out, do something to the thing, put it back in this recipe. We're using both the blender and the food processor today. We are retrieving the fond from the bottom of our pan. Do I want to do the tomatoes? WeFormer is another streamer. We've rated WeFormer a few times. WeFormer is a friend of the channel. She comes in here sometimes and says hi as well. And then we had a brief discussion about how it's generally a faux pas to advertise another channel in the channel you're watching. And I asked that we refrain from such. And then I brought it up again. So, I guess I have to ban myself. It happens. Sometimes you just have to ban yourself. Okay, we're going to see, it says 1 clove of garlic, which is not enough garlic. I'm just going to kill the remains of that garlic. Oops, there's actually a whole other loose clove. So we're going to kill the remains of this garlic, and we're just going to make this garlicky. And I don't want those tomatoes to completely fall apart over there. I just want a little bit of, and I don't think I'm going to take those guys out. I think we're going to add liquid to this with them in there, and start developing the stew. You ain't bathing in garlic. Okay. No one's asking you to. I'm using 3 cloves of garlic for our the little baby guy doesn't count. So 3 cloves of garlic for our entire pot of stew, which is not that much garlic. Eh. Someday we'll make chicken with 40 cloves of garlic, which actually is made with a lot more than 40 cloves. What? I don't know what you're talking about there, bud. Garlic. We're pulverizing up our garlic. We're going to pulverize up the ginger in the same way. Oop. You can hear the sound back there shifting a bit, so I am going to probably go add things back to the pan real quick. Let's pop over. Oh, we definitely need liquid in there. We are in the point of having we don't want to burn any of our stuff. This is a no sodium, not no sodium, this is a no added salt broth. Because as previously mentioned, I want to be able to control the salt levels a bit more closely today. Not adding all of it immediately, but we are going to end up adding all of it eventually. Okay, hop back over here. Remember on Monday how we talked about you don't cut yourself on the box grater? This guy I have nicked myself on more than anything else. These little tiny blades, they're hard to get your fingers into, but they are quite sharp. So if you do get your fingers in there, they'll take little flakes off. And that's not so nice. That's a little bit less than pleasant. Um, we're just gonna scrape the back. Oop! Drop my everything. I was surprised at how much ginger went into this. I don't think of ginger. Of course, this is my first foray into Ghanaian cooking, so maybe I just don't know anything about it. But I don't associate ginger with African cuisine. I could just be stupid. I could just be uninformed, ill-informed. Ginger is much tougher to grate than garlic, but it gives you a really nice infusion of flavor when you get that far. But the thing I always struggle with when microplaning it is the fibers want to get caught in the little tiny teeth on the microplane. It can be difficult. It can be a little difficult to clean the thing. Okay. The extra ginger can go back in our roots cellar. Tomatoes. Oh, I was supposed to add the tomatoes whole. Oh, the onions too. Wow. Interesting. I don't think they would have cooked very well. They're too big. Um, okay, we don't have kapap. Kapap. Kapapko. Kapap. Oh, that's a word that I don't think I can say because I don't think my brain can put those consonants together. I assume it's some local pepper, some local hot pepper. It says one of them said that we're green chilies, so I'm just using a green jalapeno. And I'm going to take a big knife. We're going to take the big one and dice them up a little bit. Really kind of reduce leaving the seeds in. I think this is supposed to be spicy. I mean, I know the dish is supposed to be spicy. I think this pepper that I'm substituting in is supposed to be spicy. So I'm going to leave the seeds and such in our jalapeno here and assume that that contributes to our spice levels. I guess Kian left. Okay. Chicken in the pot. Onions in the pot. Tomatoes in the pot. Garlic and ginger in the pot. Bay leaves in the pot. Then add the liquid. Okay. Such a strange order of things. I knew I would have had to add the garlic and the ginger before too much of the liquid. Otherwise we don't get it toasting off at the bottom. Bay leaves. Have I got? I do. So, that having been said, we're going to do a little bit of an odd thing. I'm supposed to fish the tomatoes and the onions out anyways. So I'm going to do that now. I was supposed to have put them in whole, which that doesn't sound right. But I guess that's what I get for not reading recipes. Now I know why I'm fishing them out. We're getting them softened, and then we're fishing them out so we can completely pulverize them, because they're not supposed to be any chunks of any of them in the finished result. So we're running them through a machine to completely pulverize them. Before they go back in. But since I want to sear off our garlic and ginger for a moment, I am going to once again drain off some liquid. This is not a step that you should do. You should just have had all your stuff prepared beforehand. You should have just had your stuff prepared beforehand so that everything could go in when it's called for. So we're going to do this until the garlic is fragrant. The ginger is already fragrant, so that's not helpful, but we're going to do this until the garlic is fragrant, and then we're going to add our remaining liquid back to it. The pepper is going in now as well. Okay. And we're going to call that good enough. Doesn't take long for garlic to be fragrant. 2 bay leaves and the remaining stock. We're using chicken stock because there is no way for me to get lamb stock. And these store-bought stocks are pretty bland and flavorless anyways, so they're all about the same. Let's make sure that nothing is stuck to our bottom by doing a full scrapey scrape. This guy needs to come back up to a bubbling state. Peanut sauce while the soup is simmering. Onions and okay. I kind of understand what they're going for, and I have screwed up the order, so that's going to mess up everything. But this guy no longer needs me to poke him around for a while, so we're actually going to swap him to the back corner. Clean that up real quick. We're going to swap him to the back corner because I need to prepare the peanut sauce, with which is going to be in the. That burner is still hot. The little guy there. Bring back over to the countertop. So what I was supposed to do was put these in the pot whole at the beginning, and then leave them in there as I add all my other things. And then once they have softened up, remove them whole still, but softened, and then blend them and put them back in there, which is a little weird. But that's what it wanted. Kind of strange. I couldn't find a small jar of just tomato puree, so I'm using a prepared tomato sauce that is, again, no salt added, but it has a little bit of garlic and a little bit of onion powders in it. And this recipe does not call for doing it this way, but I thought that this sounded like a great idea. So I'm doing it this way based on a separate recipe. That you never want to put a nonstick on a hot burner with nothing in it. It will rapidly overheat the nonstick coating if there's nothing there to take up the heat. And the thing we are going to take up the heat with is this weird peanut butter that I don't like using. It's runny, it separates, it forms big weird lumps. But it is 100% peanuts. So it is exactly what I needed in this situation. So I'm glad I have it now, because so what this recipe I'm looking at right now calls for is do this with peanuts and water to loosen up the peanut butter so that when you add it to your stew, it actually can combine instead of floating around as lumps. But a different recipe said the same thing, but use a tomato sauce or a tomato puree as the liquid that you add to your peanut butter to loosen it up. And that's the one I'm going for. because that one sounds more betterer to me. So it's roughly equal parts peanut butter and tomato sauce. And I'm just heating it enough that I can get them to sort of combine and maybe sizzle a little bit. Doesn't need to reduce, doesn't need to cook. I also have some lumps in here that definitely need to be worked out, and I'm hoping that the heat will help kind of work those out. It is a strange color. It's sort of a like a medium tan. It's weird pinkish brown color. And I'm just pressing it through the pan with the spatula here to ensure that there aren't any big chunks of that weirdly lumpy peanut butter. Not crunchy peanut butter, it's smooth peanut butter, but it forms these lumps very, very quickly. It really wants to separate because it's got nothing in it to keep it from separating. Okay. One of the things said, do this until the oil from the peanut butter separates. Oops, don't rest that on the side of the pan. You will melt it. This one has a plastic handle. We can turn our actual stew down to a light simmer. I'm also going to swap this guy to the back corner and give it a quick scrape. Use one spatula to clean another spatula. But it actually kind of works to do that. That. Kind of an odd thing, but there we have it. We're probably going to skip the bouillon cube and just trust that the chicken stock is enough. Okay, part, slide over to the countertop. I'm gonna move a few things. We need the good old-fashioned blend machine. For these guys, I think they're softened up enough, and I'm going to just get them done, and I have a little bit of tomato sauce to add to them if I think they need more liquid to liquefy. So there they are, and here we are. They definitely need a scoosh of liquid. So let's add got a nice vortex going on in there, so I think that means that they are good. And then we just take this guy back over to the stove and dump it in our stew. And any not quite doneness of it will disappear. The peanut stuff has to be turned off so I can hear it sizzling. That is a little thick. Honestly, that's a little bit thick. So, with the heat off, I'm adding a scoosh of water to it. Because I think we're supposed to have it be liquidy enough that I can pour it into our stew and it will kind of disperse. Maybe. I'm not sure. Let's get our... Oops! Shoot! That's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I wanted at all. Get that cleaned up before it dries in place. It is a nightmare. Ugh. But I'm just going to stir more gently. Stir around our stew to ensure that our tomato and onion mixture is fully dispersed. Bring it back up to a simmer because we lost our simmer. I'm supposed to simmer until the oil separates from the peanuts with quite a lot of water. Okay. And it said on high heat. It seems so strange. But I guess I'll boil my peanut butter mixture a little bit. Having a clear endpoint, like until the peanut oil floats to the surface, can't really argue with it. Strange. But I suppose that's what I came here to do, was explore a new cuisine that I'm unfamiliar with. Let's see how my sound is looking. Put the blender away. We don't need the blender, but now we need the other tools. I'm gonna let that stuff bubble away over there. We're gonna come back over here. We're gonna do one more major element. And it's this guy. Ooh, little woody at the top there. Top and bottom off. Okay, that is bubbling too vigorously. We're going to turn it down. This is our cassava root. Can't eat the skin, and the skin has also been heavily waxed to prevent the thing from drying out. So, aggressively remove the skin. I have two of these because I have one that I just got, and I have one that was a bit older that I was not confident in. And the one in my hand is the new one that I just got. So the other one might not look so good once we get inside, because I've had it for a little bit extra time. Yeah, it's real brown on the inside, so I'm glad yeah, it's terrible on the inside. That one is just trash. Okay, good to know. They don't keep forever. I must moisten. Thank you for the moisten. Moist. Wow, I'm surprised. I'm surprised I have such. I don't want to comment about viewership, but I'm surprised I've got such a low turnout on a Friday. I've had some really good Fridays lately, and I thought it was. I don't know. Stir around. So I'm glad you guys are here. Oop, wow, I'm catching stuff with my fingers a lot and making little spills. Extra clumsy. Okay, I just had to go make sure that our peanut sauce wasn't burning. Okay, we're supposed to cut this guy in half. Cut this part in half. And it's remove the woody core. This stuff smells so interesting. I think the easiest way to remove the woody core is to quarter it. Same way I remove the core of an apple when I don't care about keeping nice pieces. Is to quarter it and kind of take the corner off. Bookwoman, hi. Welcome, welcome. It's been kind of a quiet day, honestly. I'm doing okay. How are you? We are actually a good chunk of the way through the project already today. So you're getting here for some of the exciting parts. Hectic over there. Well, that's no good. Well, pull up a chair. Relax. Settle in. It's much easier than the first time I did this, where I had like little pieces that I was trying to take the cores out of. Just kind of cut this thing into wedges, and then I'm taking the point off of each wedge, and I'm saying that's good enough. A glass of wine is often just the ticket after a hectic day. Okay, this stuff. We have to get the machine. One of the machines. There's so many machines today. We need the dough hook. We need just the motor. There we go. This is going to get food processed in a moment. In un momento. And it's I'm almost hesitant to do it that way. We're using half a plantain. Oop, this still has the big old sticker on it. I'm using half of a plantain as well, which is much easier to cut. And I think that the expected size of the cassava is larger, because I don't feel like this should be half cassava, half plantain, but it would be if because I picked out a rather small root, because I didn't want to go nuts with it, but plantains are all pretty much the same size. Peels pretty nicely. We've had some of these where I had a hell of a time peeling them. This one has come out pretty well. Just a small trim needed there. If you can get the skin to hold together, it peels like a banana, but like a really hard banana. If you can't, then you got to cut them with a knife. On both of these, I got a little bit there that I just need the knife to get under. You don't want the skins to stick around at all. They're nasty. They are nasty. Oop. Okay, well, lost a little chunk of the thing there. Okay, so this is supposed to be the method. I mean, the actual method is using a big mortar and pounding it. Let's make sure my stew isn't sticking or doing anything weird. Okay, it's not, so I'm confident. Okay. I was going to say, I'm a little hesitant. The cassava root is hard enough that I'm not 100% sure about running it like this. But here we go. Let's not break the machine if we can help it. Power on. I'm going to pulse it to start with. Yeah, that'll probably work. Hit puree. And let it run for a little while. I have neglected an ingredient. A very, very basic ingredient. Which, in retrospect, makes a lot of sense. Neither of these things are wet enough to form a puree without some water, so... let's grab a fresh spatula, scrape the sides down. Now it's supposed to pulverize. So we're gonna take the chute off. We're gonna come in here and run it again. I don't think this is doing what it's supposed to do quite fully. It seems too chunky. I'm not adding more water. We're ending up with a soup instead of a paste. Do we have any experts who know anything about what I'm making, who can step in and tell me if this is right or wrong? It doesn't look like the pictures, but the pictures only show the finished result. So I don't know. Let me ask. I don't know. Well, it's wet. So it's not dusty. But yeah, it looks chunky rather than pureed. It doesn't look quite right. It doesn't look quite right. Um, it's not getting any smaller as I spin it, so and I even added more water than it called for, and I think I've got less cassava than it calls for. It doesn't say how big of a cassava, but I think the one I've selected is on the low end. It's not, well, maybe. Let's hope it works. We're gonna hope it works. I guess. I wish sometimes these recipe sites would have in-progress pictures. When I eventually stop procrastinating and make a recipe site, I should definitely include in-progress pictures. Because there are things like this where I don't know what it's supposed to look like at this stage. The only pictures of it are the pictures of it at the very end when it is fully the thing that it's going to become. And you're supposed to cook it. It says it's horrible. Stir until a thick paste-like dough is formed. Feel free to cook longer if you feel the fufu is not yet cooked. I don't know what that means. This is a recipe that somehow assumes that you know this thing before you've made it. So we're going to find out. I know I've seen pictures of the finished product. So I know what it's supposed to look like at the very end. And we had an experiment with cassava before where it formed a lovely paste after I cubed and boiled it like a mashed potato. And it got very, very thick. So I'm hoping that our pulverizing has caused enough of the starches and whatever other binding elements are in it to express out, and then all we have to do is heat it and it'll form a ball blob, a ball blob, a bulb. I don't know. We are finding out together, I guess. As for the Nkate Nkwan, I think this guy needs to get turned down, and the peanut mixture is supposed to be added to it. So let's do that. I don't think my peanut mixture is quite as fried off separatey as the one in the description, but I'm not sure what else I can do to it to make it do that. It doesn't really want to do that. But this should... The one outside is shouting loud enough that I can hear them. Peanut should now further thicken our stew. Because it needs to be, in theory, thick enough at the end that you can pinch off a glob of this stuff, if this stuff ends up being pinchable. You pinch off a glob of this stuff and you dip it in there, and that's how you eat it. But I don't know what... I'm going to put a lid on this. I'm going to put a lid on this and help it kind of steam in its own juices a little bit. Okay, well, we're making a thing. I did forget one thing. I forgot our little hot pepper, which is... Oh, and the okra. And the okra. The okra was being used as a plate garnish, but it needs to be fried off a little bit. Alongside omotuo. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's okay. Omotuo is this, but made with rice instead of cassava. So I'm on that track. I'm just doing it with the cassava instead. Where does this little pepper go in? 1 Scotch bonnet or chili powder. That means it's going to go in the stew itself. Add salt and chili powder if desired. Oh, okay, so it goes in literally right at the end, and they don't even cut the pepper. Well, that makes me think... First of all, it makes me think that we need to taste it. Oh, there's an ad. I have been bamboozled. It's hot. It could use some more spice. And since it says we can use chili powder or a Scotch bonnet, which is an extremely hot pepper. If you're not familiar with a Scotch bonnet, it is an extremely hot pepper. I'm going to take one of these guys, these mystery peppers I got from the farmer's market. And I'm actually going to use a little bit of salt because we have room in our recipe to add more salt because I have not been adding salt as we go. Salt as an abrasive to really do that. Really pulverize it. Ooh, lean away from it. Whoa, whoa, okay. Adding that to our thing. Get it stirred in. Oh, we have to stir. Okay, we definitely have to stir this now. Now that I've added the peanut, it seems like it wants to start clinging to the bottom a bit more. I think I understand the okra, because this is not going to look like much when we're done, despite all the things that are in it, because almost every ingredient, aside from the meat, has been like pulverized and cooked into the stew. Only the meat is not, and we're supposed to probably simmer that until it tenderizes as well. This is making noise. So I'm popping the lid off. Ooh. It's doing something. It's really trying to stick to itself. But it's also frying on the outside, which is not supposed to do. It's getting real sticky. We might actually achieve our goal. It's really trying to stick to itself. I think what we're going for is this sort of creamy white color instead of the bright white. I think that's the signal that the cassava is cooked. But it's, I don't know, this might actually work. I didn't think it was going to be pulverized enough. But now I think this might actually work. Now it said, once it is sticky enough to form a ball, which we're currently doing, I'm forming a hot ball, and I'm going to flip it over. Once it is sticky enough to form a hot ball, okay, I'm now pleasantly intrigued. I'm supposed to add water to the pan that it's in and steam it. It might not be as smooth as if we pounded it with a pounder, but I'm more optimistic than when I put it in the pan initially, and I'm hopeful that we end up with a good, fun result. So that's going to steam in its pan. I was going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wash the small pan out real quick. I'm trying to figure out what I need from among. I need both of you, and I don't need that one anymore. I want to use the small pan again right away. So I'm washing the small pan. That we did the peanuts in. You can see the debris, the spatter of the peanut all around it. Let's get that on. Let's put a dab of oil in there. I don't honestly know how it intends me to prep the okra. So I am just going to give it a quick fry. It's frozen. It's frozen and therefore pretty hard to use. So I'm gonna awkwardly use it. I've had this forever. I don't know what to do with it, so I'm using it now. It's going to be kind of ugly, but it's going to be like a green thing that goes on the top of our finished result. A lot of ice inside this bag. I think all of which came from inside the okra, because I've had it for too long. And then I'm going to take my serrano pepper that I picked up just for this dish and do the same. Ooh, Axel wants another moisten. I am out of water because I put it in my food. Moist. Thank you for the moisten. That needs a lid. That needs a lid that fits. Or a lid that's oversized. Let's go with oversized. Because that ice chunk needs to thaw out a bit. Our fufu has formed a ball, is not dissolving now that I've got water around it, and is steaming. Hopefully we end up with a nice... So it's supposed to be, based on the pictures and the descriptions, like a pliable, stretchy dough when it's done, that you just like pull chunks off. And the plantain is supposed to make it less like stretchy, because the stretchiness comes from the cassava. So the more you dilute out your cassava, the more you have, or the less you have that sort of stretchiness. Because I guess cassava has, it must have mucilage in it. Because it sure does thicken things fast and aggressive. And I think we're steaming. I think probably the traditional way to do this is, because I know you're supposed to pound it. You get one of those things, it's one of those things where it's a pounded starch. Because as we saw at the beginning, the root is rather hard. So you're probably supposed to beat it until it's smooth, and then form it into a ball, because it'll kind of stick to itself at that point, and steam it. Possibly boil it, but I bet you're supposed to steam it. But maybe boil it. I'm not sure. Either way, you gotta wet heat it. It's forming a foam. Can you see that? You can kind of see that. It's forming a foam inside my pan. That's interesting. That sure is an interesting development. Ooh, okay, yes, the peanut stew over here does need to be stirred periodically to prevent it from sticking to the bottom. We're also reaching a point where it's getting kind of mud volcano-y. It has, since the beginning, looked, well, it got even more so when I put the peanut butter in it. It looks like a pot of mud. But now it's also getting thick like mud, and we're getting a little bit of that blorpy bubbling. Have you thawed out yet? Mostly. That is some ugly looking okra. Wow. Okay. Well, I guess on the docket is figure out what to do with freezer burned okra. I'll come up with something. Get these parts separated. I'm actually going to turn the heat up quite a lot on that back burner and see if I can't get it to really finish itself off there. Now that the chunks of ice are mostly gone. Speaking of which, let's turn the front burner off. Lid off. Check on our thing here. Oh, it is trying to dissolve out the sides a little bit and stick in the middle. That's not what I wanted it to do. Makes me think even more that it's supposed to be steamed and not boiled, because it seems like it wants to dissolve really quickly. I think I might have ruined it. I think when I said I noticed it starting to form a foam, I should have taken it off the heat right then, because it has formed more of a sludge. I'm going to stir it to try to even it out. Hopefully the liquidy parts will... I'm going to turn the heat back on it, actually. Hopefully the liquidy parts will reincorporate and we can drive some of the excess water away. It certainly doesn't look right. I'm switching back to a spatula because it has gotten so soft. There's definitely no like white bits left in it, so it's all cooked, honestly, probably overcooked. That guy's done. Get him off of there. That guy needs to not stick to the bottom and can probably get turned way down and just kind of simmer away. Simmer down now. Well, I want the symbolic body of Christ cooperate. Well, the symbolic body of Christ is over here in the brown thing. This is supposed to be a pinchable dough that is clearly too wet for that. So I'm going to I'm applying heat and I'm pushing it into itself, and it's steaming quite a lot, and I'm hoping that it will recombine into a blob. I'm gonna have to look up a video of how to make this stuff, because the recipes just make some big old assumptions. Also, hi, Sosleys. Welcome, welcome. We are this is a non-stick pan, and it is sticking like mad. At least it's not chunky anymore. But yeah, the written recipes here make some assumptions that You know what the end product is supposed to be like. And also that I guess you can just make this with cassava, no plantain. And that is the most traditional way to do it. So then you wouldn't need measurements because it's just a consistency thing. But there's very few measurements. It says 1 cassava, 1 plantain, and a quarter cup of water. Yeah, this is not. This is not. This looks weird. This looks weird. This looks like it's not the thing it's supposed to be. It is very sticky. It's like a paste, like a glue. Glue, I think, is how I would describe this. This is like a glue. I am going to keep going and attempt to make it cohesive with itself. But yep, this one might be one of those ones where things aren't quite working out well. It's starting to. It's not really. I don't know how to eat this is the thing. I can't stop now because I can't eat this. No, this is supposed to be fufu, and I have clearly done it wrong. Well, consider yourself blessed. You are here for one of my infrequent major fails. Because this is not coming together. Let's push our stew around. Let's push our stew around. Let's get out a scraper. I mean, it's still thickening. Trouble is, it really dissolved into the surrounding water in a way that I was entirely not expecting, and then we had to deal with that. So now I really question the recipe. So fufu is supposed to, at the end, come out like a ball of dough, like a ball of raw dough. That's the consistency you're looking for, where you can grab it with your hand and like pinch a chunk off. This stuff is more like a porridge. You'd have to eat this with a spoon, which defeats the purpose because you're supposed to use the fufu to scoop up the stew. So this stuff has to be thick enough that you can use it as a finger food. This is supposed to be a finger food. And it is, so I'm just trying to drive water out of it. And the ingredients are 1 cassava root, doesn't say how big, 1 green plantain, doesn't say how big, 1/4 cup of water, that's an exact amount. And it didn't want me to put any water in the, I've added more than 1/4 cup of water. It didn't want me to add any water to the food processor, but without water in the food processor, it was like still chunky, and there's no pictures for reference, and it calls it a batter, and it says it's pourable. There's no way that what was in there would ever form a pourable batter. There just wasn't enough liquid in it. So I added some water to that. And then I guess I was supposed to add, it says add a splash of water. Just add a splash of water. So clearly, it will take up water like crazy. Because that's what it did. It took up water like mad. I don't have any more cassava to work with. And it's one, and then a thing that you should never put on a recipe. Feel free to cook it a little bit longer if you feel it's not done. For a thing I've never made before. It's assuming I know what the finished product is going to be like. There needs to be some descriptor in there. I made the assumption that done meant no white bits. I also made the assumption that it wouldn't dissolve. It is gradually thickening back up, and I'm getting it sort of stuck to itself, but this is not the process for sure. We're way over time for it. I'm frustrated. I'm a little bit frustrated because the recipe has left me hanging slightly. Like there's balls of the finished one right there. What I need to do is find a video of it being made. Because then they will have in-process bits. So yeah, the current plan is to kind of, because it's drying out and it's sticking to itself more than the pan increasingly as we go. So that's the plan, I guess. What's our time? We're closing in on 2 hours. I'm supposed to be done by now. I thought this was going to be a shorter one, but now I have to Okay, well, if you're still here, if you're still bearing with me, congratulations. And thank you. Congratulations and thank you. But okay, yeah, it's kind of doing its thing. It's gonna be too hot to eat when we finally get it to that consistency, and it's gonna look like heck. I have an ad coming up, and I don't want to deal with that. I'm gonna run the ad now. Oh, okay. Uh, I don't think I can treat this like polenta. I don't think that you're getting quite how sticky this stuff is through the camera. It is. But see, it's forming a ball again. We're back to the part where it's trying to form a ball, which it was where we roughly started. So I think we might make a really bad version of it that is actually usable. Maybe. I'm supposed to wrap it in plastic wrap to prevent it from drying out. But I think I'm just going to let it sit out and let it dry out. It's like the consistency of like school paste. If I can get it to firm up enough to do anything with it, then I'm just going to get it to firm up enough to do what I'm supposed to do with it, and call it good enough. I don't even know what it tastes like. It probably doesn't taste like anything. I don't think it's supposed to taste like anything. I think it's supposed to taste like starch, and then you eat it with something like this that has actual flavor, and that's it. But look, it's actually trying to do the thing. It doesn't quite hold up, but it tries. And a lot less steam is coming off of it. So I think we're just probably gonna... I bet you if I cooled it now, it would be workable. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out a bowl that will roughly hold that volume of stuff. I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to get out a sheet of plastic. plastic up the bowl. Maybe not. Hold on. Before I do that and commit, what happens if I just plunk it out like that? It's hot. It wants to stick to my hands real bad. And it wants to spread out very, very slowly. Boy, getting the water back out of it was a lot harder than getting the water into it. It is at least holding itself together to the point where it's not going to fall off. It's not immediately sticking to my hands. It is kind of very gradually flattening as it sits here. I'm hoping that if it cools off a little bit, I can shape it. It's the wrong color, too. It's very beige as opposed to like off-white. So, yeah, I don't want this to go on forever. So, oh my God, this microphone is about to die its batteries again. Or maybe it's lying. Maybe we should just keep trucking through. If I suddenly go quiet, shout at me, or make lots of posts in the thing. I'm going to assume that the battery is simply lying about its level, because every time I plug it in, it charges up much faster than it should. Anyways, we're going to get on to plating. We're just going to do it. We're going to use my latest thing, this dinosaur ladle, which stands up when you set it down. It's an adorable dinosaur ladle. It's maybe a slightly impractical, adorable dinosaur ladle. It's a little bit floppy. Well, it's cute. It's cute, even if it's not the most practical ladle I've ever used. I'm adding just a little bit of extra of the juice. Some of our peppers and okra chunks over here on the side so that this isn't all just reddish brown. Rinse my hand off because that is spicy stuff. Hey, this stuff is actually, like, handleable. It still looks wrong, but it looks less wrong than when we started. It feels grainy. And I believe it's supposed to be smooth, like a dough. But then you just take this guy and you plunk him in the middle. He's not sticking to my hands too bad. I think I got soap in my hands. Oh, and for the looks, not so much for the flavor, but for the looks, I'm going to give it just a tiny drizzle of this, which is chili oil. It's definitely oil made with chilies, but it's not spicy. I don't know what the purpose of it is. It just tastes kind of burnt. It's weird. That ball is probably supposed to be bigger. Yeah, I don't know. It looks nice. It was the cheapest one they had, so that might be a factor. Okay. Let me grab a picture. This will look better in the pictures. It would look better before I added that extra little blob. I can smooth the seam a little bit, maybe. Now, fufu is, it's not firm. You could make a snowman with the real stuff. The real stuff forms like a ball. This stuff does not. My fail version does not. But let me take a picture. Or a couple. And let's get to the tasting so that if I... And also let me know if you can still hear me. We're going to be kind of echoey at the end here because I'm going to switch to onboard. I'm having battery problems with my wireless mic. What you're supposed to do is you take a pinch of the stuff and you use it to scoop up your stew. And in theory, and the way I made it, I don't trust it. But in theory, this stuff is supposed to be so soft that you don't need to chew it. You just scoop up the stew, put it in your mouth, and swallow. It actually tastes really good. It actually tastes really good. This stuff, the fufu itself, we don't have the right consistency, and it tastes like basically nothing. If I taste it by itself, it tastes a little bit by itself. Oh, no, it definitely has flavor by itself. It's very mild. It's extremely mild. It's a little bit grainy. I don't think you can get the smooth texture without a high power device or a pounding tool to really pulverize it. So we might try that sometime. Very mad. The stew, I keep looking at it. Nkate Nkwan with lamb. Um, it's really good. It's so flavorful. It's got richness and depth. I think it actually could stand to be stewed quite a bit longer. The meat is cooked and not like tough, but it's not fall apart tender. It's just kind of normal meat tender. So it's a little bit chewy, which means I wouldn't be able to do the swallow thing even if I had the correct stuff here. It makes a mess. I think it's supposed to make a mess. Mm. But it's rich and it's spicy, but it's also like creamy from the peanut butter. And then it has that distinct like lamb flavor that cuts through it. I'm probably going to eat it with a spoon, just because it's kind of awkward doing the thing with this stuff not being quite the right consistency. Which is really unfortunate because I really like the idea of this stuff. I just obviously didn't make it right. Let's also just try it with some of this this here okra on the side. This is probably going to be very spicy because there's an entire serrano chili in the okra. Can you hear me? Did anyone? No one has said anything since I switched mics. Please verify. That's spicy. Okay, you can hear me. Yeah, this guy, who has been a staunch warrior all along, has been running its battery down very fast. We are 2 hours, 18 minutes into this stream, and this thing promises a 5-hour battery life, and it just died on us. So something is wrong with it. The actual transmitter mic is still running. We'll turn that off because it's not transmitting to anything anymore because the main guy is toast. So I guess I'm going to have to figure out what the heck's going on with that. Okay, well, so sorry about losing a sound right at the end there. I think I got cut off when I was telling Selena. Selena, you're first. You were the first person to arrive on stream. It is amazing. No one got here before you. It's shocking. You got here just in time for the fun part where I get to taste and talk about it. The stew is amazing. The stew is super delicious. I think serving this stew with a rice or a couscous or getting this stuff to work correctly would be excellent. It's a very rich thing, and it wants a bland starch to go with it. You could probably also do it with mashed potato, or just like potatoes thrown in there and turned into a starch. No, Axolotl, Selena redeemed first, right there. That means she's the first. It's irrefutable proof. That's how it works. Anyways, I have cooked it. I messed it up. I scraped it back from the brink, and then I tasted it. honestly, the flavors aren't anything like really wild and groundbreaking. The techniques involved are what really set this apart. I have never done something like this where I pulled parts of the stew out, blended them, and then put them back in. I like the peanut in it. It makes the stew thicker and creamier without having to add a roux or any sort of dairy to it. So that's a nice element. Yeah, I'm gonna have to learn how to make this stuff properly because I really want to. Um, yeah, and I guess that's that. And I need to stop doing this where I buy one of these too far in advance and it goes creepy. With just all vegetables in general, I buy things too far in advance, and then by the time I get to them, they've gone creepy. Um, it's wasteful. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to wrap us up there since we lost our mic and I have done the tasting. Pop my face up to my face. Howdy do. Let's go raid somebody. Let's pull up a new tab, see who's all on. A lot of people on. What are we doing? Um, Mute that tab. What is this one? That's that. I thought you weren't supposed to get ads if you were actively live. Yes, this one was a journey today. Um, I think I could have caught the fufu because we had it. It was holding a shape, and then I put some water in the pan to steam it, and it just kind of dissolved into the melted out into the water. I think if I'd done that the right way around, I could have saved it. I could have clawed it back, or not had to claw it back, gotten it to. It still wouldn't be as smooth like it's supposed to be, but would have been better. Um, see, that one is ending, so we're not going there. We're gonna see Wheat Warmer. We're gonna go see Wheat Warmer. Yeah, I am not doing an event for the actual day of Easter. That was today. This was my Easter thing. Um, and Monday, I have an idea. We'll have to crystallize it over the weekend. But I'll definitely be back here on Monday. Um, the flavors are all great. That's the thing. The flavors are great. The shape of things has not kind of come together. Um, Forgotten like last winter's snow. Well, I live in the frozen north, so last winter's snow is still here. But good sentiment. I like it. Yeah, no, the flavors are on point. I just need to now watch somebody who knows what they're doing make fufu so that I can also do it correctly. Because the written instructions led me to this. But yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up, hanging out. Um, I'm sorry, whatever set off keying at the start. I don't know what that was. Um, yeah, so here's the countdown. Bye. I'm going to push the button down here that says stop.